Welcome to the Studio Chat podcast, your safe haven for self-discovery, growth, and transformation. I'm Barbara Thompson, your host. I'm a therapist and the founder of Self-Care Studio. Whether you're joining me from my private counselling sessions, my courses, or right here on this podcast, I'm dedicated to helping you reconnect with yourself and live life authentically. This podcast is your reminder to pause, reflect, and reclaim your power. Together we'll explore the messy, beautiful journey of life, from letting go of people-pleasing and overthinking to embracing your worth and stepping boldly into your true self. Here, you're not just a listener, you're part of a community that values self-trust, self-love, and living life on your terms. So whether you're navigating challenges, seeking clarity, or simply craving a dose of inspiration, you've come to the right place. Thank you so much for choosing to spend this time with me. Let's dive into today's episode and continue this journey together. Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Studio Chat podcast. My name's Barbara Thompson, I'm the host. I love my podcast. As you know, this is like a passion project for me. I love that my guests can be who they are, say what they want to say. There's no filters, and that's basically my personality down to a T, I think. And this is why you tune in to listen to this podcast, because you probably don't know what each episode you're going to get, but also it's authentic, it's real. I don't edit my episodes, and that's the way I'll always keep it. I think it's almost just a nice chat conversation. Now we're up to episode 132, so it's the second episode of the year. So if this is the first one you're listening to, welcome. It's so nice to have you here. Now, interesting, my guest, I've known her for a couple of years now, and it's interesting how time passes because it feels like I've known her my entire life, which I probably have actually. So if you go back to episode 56, this is where we first met Nicole. And Nicole came onto my podcast really early on because it was just touching on things about intuition, and she's a Reiki practitioner as well. So we talked a little bit Reiki, and I was very green at that stage, hadn't had any Reiki or didn't know what it was about. So that's a cool episode if you want to go back and listen to like Nicole, who she is, her story, and a bit about spirituality and her own personal experiences. But today what we're going to do is Nicole has this beautiful business called the Intuitive Alchemist. And I have to say, Nicole, I love that name. It is just such a cool name. My background's in marketing and branding, so obviously I love the name. And then I look at all her branding and stuff, and I'm like, oh, I'm so in love. Like, I don't care what you do. I love the brand. And that's how I'm sold on a lot of things, even though I've done marketing my whole life. I'll pay whatever money for pretty packaging because I'm a sucker for it. But that's why we have marketing. So I want to say, I love you as a person, but I love what you do. And I love what you do because you are real, and you say, how do I put this? Spirituality sometimes can be an area, it's coming from someone, me, that I probably didn't know any of this stuff existed till I moved to Australia. So that was a good 38 years of my life. I think I would have laughed in anyone's face if they mentioned anything to do with spiritual. I'd have been like, loser, like, oh my God, like witchy stuff or like Ouija boards. Or I was, honestly, when I say this, I was so far removed from this type of world that it's so, and I mean this with love, it's so weird that I'm having a podcast and an episode that I'm talking to Nicole, and I get excited, and this part of my world now, whether I like it or not, has been a massive, what would I say? A massive part of my healing, a massive part of who I am today, and how I really got to understand who Barbara was through this stuff. This was something I could not ignore. It came into my face. And I want to welcome you. I mean, that was a massive long introduction, but anyway, I want to welcome you to my podcast, Nicole. It's so nice to have you back.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
We want to educate some people today, don't we? Because what I was touching on the spiritual side is a lot of people find spirituality in their darkest times, or we hold on to it because we want to meet the man, or we want to know our business is going to be okay, or we all want certainty in life. And there's some people, we're all gifted. We can all do this type of stuff if we want to. But I feel some people, I mean, it's like any industry, right? There's people that are in
Yep.
it just for the money. There's people that bullshit people, which can, and then there's all sorts of hidden underlying things with spirituality. So that's why I love you, Nicole, because you're you're like me, but on the spiritual side is you don't mince your words, but you come from love, like your unconditional love, and that's what you carry. And anyone that meets you, if you've ever met Nicole, you just meet those people and you just feel like you know them already and you feel really comfortable because they're genuine. So where do you want to start with all of this?
Firstly, I want to start by saying thank you because that was actually really, really sweet. I love that you kind of put me as like this really kind person because I come off as very spade's a spade, black and white. So it's nice to know that even though I do speak my truth, that I still come across as loving and kind and
Can we just highlight that for a second as a woman, from a woman to a woman? You
absolutely.
know how a lot of women don't support each other and look at someone and go, oh, she's a bitch or she's whatever. That always comes from a place within you. So think in your mock, because I used to do it too. We've all done it, I'm sure, at high school or in our adult life.
Yep.
You see a group of women, you're like, oh, what is she wearing? Or she's a bitch or that. We've all done it. But
Yep.
when you come from a place of wholeness, a strong woman, there's a difference. We're not bitches. We're not blunt, and that's what I mean. I don't see any. It's interesting how you reframed that and said to me, "Oh, thank you," but this is how some people see me. I have never, ever, ever seen you in that light. So it's so interesting, I think, when people know who they are and are true to themselves. When you look at someone else, a woman that's successful and driven and good at what she does, all I see is the light and the love from you. I don't pick up any of that stuff. So do you find that interesting? That's why I just wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, but that's also a good indication that you've done the work, that you've done the healing, you've done the shadow work, because, you know, you can always tell the people who clap. Sometimes not the people who clap the loudest, but people who are very, very comfortable with themselves, and normally the people who are okay with people being themselves because they have no emotional work that triggers them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Let me say that again. Yeah, people who are triggered have not done the work to find out why they're triggered.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So like if I ever catch myself, and this even comes down to Reiki, this isn't just a life thing. Like when I'm in a Reiki session, it isn't all hands waving over the body and, energy healing. It is literally bringing up this shit with a client and saying, this triggers you. Why does it trigger you? What are you going to do to move past it? Because it sits so heavy in your body. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's very easy to identify at face value where people need healing even before I go into a Reiki session, because they're either extremely accepting or they're not accepting. They're very critical.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So we don't want to start with this. This is a good place to start when we talk about spirituality as like an umbrella. What
Yeah.
is the most common thing that people come to you and ask you or say? That's probably a good place to start, yeah?
Um, yeah, but the most common question I get, I probably think that we shouldn't talk about, because it's always like, how does God and religion come into what you do, and messages from spirit and all the rest of it. So I'm just going to bypass all of that stuff. That's a conversation for another day. But basically, spirituality is, from my understanding, it is a belief in something higher than us. It is a belief that we do have guides, we do have access to angels, we do have access to our loved ones when they're passed away. That it's not just you're born, you live your life, and you die, that there's so much more to manifesting your life, the things that you do in your life and how they come about. Like it's not woo woo, like it's not magical, and it's not we're tying red ribbons around candles. It's not that at all. It is literally, I don't want to sound really fluffy when I say it, but it's like the magic of the universe and how the universe works if you pay attention to it and if you pay attention to yourself.
Oh, yep, yep.
Yeah.
Okay. You pay attention to it. Okay.
Mhm.
So what do you mean by that?
So, in my understanding, everything vibrates and everything is energy. And you have yourself as a human being, and then there's so much more surrounding us as human beings. So, not only is there energy that affects your mood in your day. So, very, very simply, if you get up and you're like, "Fuck, I'm having a shit day," you're going to have a shit day. That's like more of a manifestation lens in spirituality. But then if you get up and you're like, I'm working on myself and I'm slowing down and I'm listening, what am I hearing from spirit? What is the universe telling me? What clair senses am I going to pick up on to give me an insight into what's going to happen today? Does that make sense? Like, it is so fucking broad,
It
but
is. Yeah.
it's also so very simple. It's about slowing down, being one with yourself, being very, very open, because, everyone is so capable of having psychic gifts, seeing into the future, feelings about other people, feelings about a situation. It's just we're so fucking busy, we just ignore it and
Mm.
we don't pay attention to it.
Yeah, I talk a lot about that with that was probably my introduction to I've been a spiritual being my whole life, and it cannot be ignored on how I was born and how I came into the earth and my story. That's just, yeah, but it's interesting. I dismissed that for so long when I met basically everyone that I was put in front of for the first 30 years. I would get an initial, I either liked you or I didn't. And it was
Mhm.
very, like a split second of you're a bitch or you're a bastard or I don't like you. And I was right every time. So I want people listening to this. You're not a horrible person. We're not meant to like everyone. It just means that that person's not for you. But I think I could have saved myself a lot of heartache, turned down jobs that weren't for me. Obviously, everything happens for a reason. So I'm so cool. Like that's fine. But people like don't dismiss when you're at a function or a work meeting or at a barbecue or you're even in like getting your hair done or something and you have a new stylist or someone sitting next to you and you feel off. Listen
Yeah,
to
100%. 100%. And I love that you say it's very quick,
it's
because I would
fleeting, isn't it?
so and that's what I teach my clients about listening to their intuition. That's how I teach them to listen, because everyone thinks intuition is like this really strong, like overpowering yes, no, anything like that. It's actually a really instant, quiet little voice. And if you're not trained to pick it up, it's almost like the best way I can explain it is your intuition is someone whispering to you in a baseball game in a stadium.
That's
You
good.
have to train it. You have to train yourself to listen. You have to ask questions. What? Can you speak up? I didn't hear that. Trust that. Oh, that sounded like this. This is what I've heard. Does that make sense? That's
Yeah.
what your intuition sounds like. It's not loud. It's not overbearing. It doesn't come with unsettled feelings inside. It is that really calm, quiet, fuck no, Barbara. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. I love that you said slowing down and being one. So this is how it connects with the work that I do with my clients. I'm not a normal therapist, if that sounds right. Like I'm a therapist, but I work very much on energetics and I do a lot of the work with my clients that one day I'll get into it. I don't tell them what I do.
Yeah.
So I listen to what they say and I hear what they say, but on an energetic level, I'm doing things that they don't know about. Can't really advertise in that promote that yet because people will go, oh my God, that's too scary. I won't go. So I just do it. Any of my clients listen to this, they'll be like, what? So that's why when you see me for a session, you feel different afterwards. You'll feel so much lighter. You'll feel like, oh, I really love seeing that person.
Yeah.
So I have something and I'm still learning how to use that. But anyway, so I love that you said slowing down and being one because we all need to do that, regardless if you're listening to this now because you're interested in spirituality. To start with, try that because it's all is inclusive. Spirituality is what the gift and the art of slowing down and being one, being with yourself, paying attention to yourself. You mentioned clear senses.
Yeah.
Tell us more about that.
So, the best way I can describe it is every type of psychic or intuitive person has a clear sense. So there are questionably nine. Some people think there are eight, but there are questionably nine clear senses. So they're things like being clairvoyant, is so not all psychics are just clairvoyant. A clairvoyant is a clear seeing, so you'll have literal visions, dreams, things like that. But then you also have things like claircognizance, which is I don't know why, but I just know.
Okay, that's
And
a
then
common
there are
one.
things,
Yeah, that's a common one. Yeah.
yep. So then there's clear audience. So people who literally hear things. So you'll literally hear someone talking to you.
Oh.
So there are actually some really, really good clear senses. So some people, when they hold jewelry and they get the energy readings from things, and they can literally get past energy from it, and then they can also do future predictions from it. So that's like clear tangency. So that's like clear touching. So you'll hold something and you pick up the energy from it. So like, you know how you ever pick up a piece of jewelry and you're like, oh, this jewelry just feels off. Like, I don't know if you've ever gotten an old piece of jewelry from a grandma or something like that, but you can just feel the energy from it. That's actually clear sense. And the thing is, everyone just expects having psychic abilities to fall under one type of umbrella, like, oh, I saw that coming, or I just know, or I had a dream. It is so fucking broad. And it's almost like going into a room and you know how you pick up the heaviness? That's a
Yeah.
different type of clear sense.
Yeah, I get
Yeah.
that
So
all the time. Yeah.
100%. So, my best advice to people, if you think, because everyone has a gift, whether you push it aside or whether you nurture it, everyone's born with something. It's just everyone can either do one thing or everyone can do everything. So, my guidance to people is always try and recognize, do your research on all the clear senses, and then try and recognize what clear senses you have. And then you can, it's almost like doing an apprenticeship. You have to build your tools. Some people are born naturally really, really strong, and then some people really need to do work. Most people are really good at what they do because they put the work in. They practice what they preach. They do little intuition tests. They've also learnt by fucking up. They've also learnt by not listening when their intuition has said, no, don't do that, and they've done it. That is also a practice. So half of you have been practicing your whole life by not listening to your intuition. But it's really, really good to find tools. So find your clear senses and then find tools to build on it.
Okay. So
Now,
you haven't said all nine. What are some other ones? What was the one that you said that you walk into a room and you feel the energy? What is that one called?
I would probably say that's more clear empathy.
Okay. Yeah.
Like being really sensitive to an energy in a room, being really sensitive to a person. However, I will say that being sensitive to people as an energy reader, you also might have a little bit of like healing gifts. So you might be able to be a Reiki healer or something like that. Like normally people are very sensitive to picking up on people's energies, and you know, you just build on that looking at someone and think, oh, her shoulder's sticking out to me. I wonder if she's got a sore shoulder and stuff like that. Like that would come, in my opinion, under your Reiki eye.
Mm, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any other clear senses that you think are worth mentioning?
Probably not. There are things like clairgustance and then clairsalience and things like that, which are smelling and tasting. So you know how sometimes you're like, oh, I can smell Nan's perfume. That's a psychic gift, and that is a very specific psychic gift.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've all had experience where we have it at some stage. I can smell cigarettes, but there's no one smoking around.
Yeah,
Little
that's
things like that.
very special. Well, sometimes
Yeah.
you can smell corn chips, and sometimes that's my pug, because sometimes my dog smelled like nachos. And so the other day, I think it was yesterday actually, and I was like, I can smell nachos. Like who's? And then I had a thought, and I was like, oh, is that my dog? I was like, probably.
Probably. You would
Yeah.
be surprised. You would be surprised because the thing is too, um, I was saying to a client the other day, like, I don't want to give too much information because I don't want to disrespect anyone's privacy. But I was at work and I was checking her out, and she's like, I've got this song in my head. And she like it just kept repeating, just kept repeating and repeating and repeating. And I actually said to her, because something happened with a family member and they were kind of waiting to hear, like, basic in a nutshell, how someone had passed away. And this song had kept repeating in her head. And I said to her, sometimes spirit gives you messages in ways of repeating songs. And it was something about resuscitation and stuff like that. So I was like, maybe just pay a little bit of attention to the messages that spirit are giving you. And I still haven't heard the rest of the story, so I don't know how relevant that song is. But even when when I first fell pregnant with my eldest, I woke up in the morning and I had this song, you know, that Ed Sheeran, There's a Small Bump on Board.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, it was just repeating, repeating, repeating. And I had no idea I was pregnant. And then that day I found out I was pregnant. And you don't have to be psychic to have stuff like that happen. It can
It's
happen with
pretty
everyone.
cool. It's pretty cool. And I'll share my music one too. I think it had only been, mine's always dog related because I'm always close to my dogs.
Yeah.
But might have been a couple of days after my previous dog Maisie, which passed away last year, the year before. And I was driving, and I never let her run through long grass here in Australia for many reasons, because there's so many bloody critters here. So I would never let any of my dogs run through long grass here in Australia. So this song, I was driving on the motorway. I still remember it very clearly. I can't remember. It was a new song that had just come out, and it was something about I'm running through the long grass. I'm running through the long grass, and I just laughed and cried at the same time, going, "Yeah, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I
She
bet you."
was like, like, I'm fucking running through long grass, Barbara. There's no snakes here.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So that was, but it happens, and then also sometimes if you're open to it when you're driving in the car. And actually, I love how you brought this up, because this has happened to me a lot, especially over the last couple of years. I've been driving, and it's paying attention, isn't it?
Yeah.
So most of us don't pay attention because we're on autopilot. We're getting the kids ready for school, the lunches, drop-offs, pickups, work, clients, washing, bed. Like, it's just this whole rotation. But when you stop, like you said, and pause, slow down, pay attention to what's playing on the radio, and I can guarantee most of the time there's a phrase, there's a word, there's some meaning in it.
100%. Same thing actually happened to me this morning. So I make a little joke about it because I just had holidays, and I made it a point that every day on my holidays, whether I dragged my kids to the gym or not, that I was going to the gym and I was working on myself. And sometimes you drag yourself out of bed. So I started to drink energy drinks, and I'm not even an energy drink person. I'm a coffee girl. I don't like fizzy drink. And I found myself every day. And I said to my husband one day, like, I need to stop these. Like, this is actually disgusting. Like, it's not good for my health. I know I'm relying on it. Like, I need to stop it. And this morning when I was at the gym, I stopped and got an energy drink because I was like, oh, okay, you're really going to need the energy, Nicole. Let's do it. And I was working out and I had a podcast on. And in the podcast, it literally was saying, stop putting poison in your body. Repeated, stop putting poison in your body. And I was like, okay, clear sign. Heard that loud and clear. Thank you. Yeah,
Who
so
drank the
it
energy
was
drink?
almost like the first time that they said it, I was like, was that a message for me? No, it wasn't. And then they repeated it again. I was like, okay, all right.
But you already had the knowing. So even the knowing, I would say that that's another spiritual form coming through as well. You had a knowing. So a lot of us have a knowing, have a knowing, have a knowing. And then one thing that kind of blows my mind a little bit is you call people into your life. So
Yeah,
every new person I meet now, I go, whoa, what are my clients too, and my friends and people on my podcast, and I meet people all around the world now. And it's amazing to have all these type of friends. I'm like, why am I meeting you? Why am I meeting you? And I'm going to say this on this podcast here, because one day you and I can come back to this moment. But there is something, my last guest, he was from Austin, Texas. Justin, if people go listen to that. And and it was interesting having a chat with him, but all the other guests from America, they were all coming from Austin, Texas. So there is something in here. And I said that to him off camera. I said to him, I have a feeling of what it may be, but I said to him, what is going, like I said to him, I had no idea where he's from. At the end of the podcast, we were talking, and in the podcast, he mentioned where he was. And I said, can I just ask you a quick question? He's like, yeah. And he wasn't from Austin, Texas. And I said, what is it like living there? And he's like, oh, it's great. And he's like, if you come over, I'll introduce you to all these people. It's just this hub of entrepreneurs and this hub of all these crypto people. And he's really well connected. And like Joe Rogan lives in Austin, Texas. All
Oh,
these
that's
kind
good.
all these kind of people live there, but every person overseas roughly that I've been pulling towards me is from Austin, Texas, and I get on with them quite well. And in my gut for a while, I've been like, what is this? And then he showed up again. And I was like, okay, I'll park this. And that's what I said to him. I don't know what it is. And he goes, come over. I'll introduce you to some people. And I was like, yeah. But I'm saying this to you now. So maybe in 100 episodes, I can come back to this and go, oh my God, Nicole, remember the time we talked about people being put in front of you for a reason or things happening? And I have a feeling that's all I'm going to say now. And you and I can revisit it on another date.
I already have all of this in the cards that I did for you this morning, Barbara.
Okay, well, we
Because
can.
I know that. So I don't know if you want to talk about it on here because you've obviously told me some intuition feelings that you've had. So when I pulled some cards out for you this morning, do you want me to tell you like roughly?
Yeah, this is real and raw, and people are listening to this, so let's go. Yep.
Fuck it, let's go. All right.
Yeah.
So
Hang on, just quietly, I'm shitting my pants. Okay, go.
okay, I'm going to be a little bit oh, I won't say everything. We'll keep a little bit for you.
Okay.
Okay. But essentially, just so that the listeners know, Barbara has said to me for quite a few meetings I've had with her, I just know I'm going to meet someone and maybe he's from Texas or America or something like that. And when I pulled cards out for you this morning, the travel card came out. So this was all about your love life. So when I was shuffling the cards, a card came out about relationships. So I was like, okay, we're going to do relationships for Barbara. So it was almost like you were becoming very impatient because you're like, where the fuck are you? Like, I'm here waiting. I'm putting in the work. I've bettered myself as a person. Like, where the fuck are you? Right.
Can we just stop for 1 second? Because I'm going to be really raw and share this on. This is my podcast. This is part of my story and journey. So if you're listening to this, if I get vulnerable, this is your mark to be vulnerable today, okay? And I'm being vulnerable. So last night, I don't get upset often that I don't have a partner. I'm actually okay with it. But last night, this is so weird. I'm sharing this. A Barbara Streisand song came onto my playlist, and it was all about finding someone and meeting someone. And I sobbed in bed. I cried and actually said,
Oh.
where are you? I can't, I'm like, it's something like I've been waiting. Sorry, it's Bryan Adams and Barbara Streisand. If anyone knows the song, like I've been waiting for someone like you or something like that. And in the words, he's like, I know you've been waiting for me. And she's like, oh, that's okay. And I said out loud, fucking hell. But no, I've been waiting for such a long time. Hurry the fuck up.
But I
Anyway,
swear
so
it
that's
came up
me
in the
being
cards.
that happened last night, and I actually sobbed,
Wow.
and I haven't
Oh,
sobbed
Barbara.
the whole. No, but I'm just being honest. I haven't been like sometimes I go, oh, I wish I had a partner, but I'm not overly. Not when I was younger. I was like, oh, I want to meet someone. I'm like, it'll happen. But last night, for some reason, that song came on. I listened to the words, and I sobbed, and I was like, are you all right? And now you're telling me that. So there you go. I'm just giving some people some real-time insight into how this stuff works. Okay.
Well, excellent, because I didn't know that. So that was like, because normally when I talk to you, you're very like, oh, I don't care, I'm happy. And you're very
I am.
happy.
Yeah.
You have done a lot of work on your self-love and you are very happy by yourself. So I was quite surprised when that card came up, but I just saw right through it. And then, so I'm not going to, like I said, I'm not going to say everything, but there is travel and there is divine timing. And I do want to say something around autumn.
Okay.
So if we're talking about America, we can be talking about autumn seasons American. And I do want to say that there is someone coming, and I do want to say he's a Piscean.
I don't know what that means at all. Sorry, people, if you're
March.
listening to this.
He's born in March.
Okay. I don't even know what that
Yeah.
means.
Yeah, he's a Piscean. His star sign is Piscean. And I even got some letters. I did get a little name, but I don't want to say that here.
Sure off.
I
Yeah.
want to I will tell you that when
Okay.
we talk after. I'm going to send you my notes.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, but the inner knowing card came up as well. So it's almost like you, and you have voiced to me before that you do think that he's from America and he is from Texas, and your card's very, very much established that you will travel. And it's almost like, so let's just say you went to the Philippines in March. He went to the Philippines in April. You went to Europe in August. He went to Europe in September. It's almost like for so long, you guys have been missing each other. And when you meet him, you might find out that he's like, you've either just missed him or he's either just missed you. You have like common friends and things like that. These are all synchronicities in life, but you won't know until you met him.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. But kudos to you, because that means like your intuition is obviously very fine-tuned, because a lot of things that came up in the cards, and this is something I do for a living, so I can't control these cards. These are your guides pulling them out, giving me messages, and these are all things that you have expressed to me that I just know, Nicole. I just can feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then last night that happening out of the blue. I mean, I'm not even the week before my period. Like I understand, like if I was a week before my period, sometimes I get a little bit cryy, but I'm not. And I went through this checklist of why am I sobbing? And then I
Who doesn't
laughed
cry to
at the
Barbara Streisand?
yeah, I laughed at the lot because her name, Barbara, right? There's another connection. Like,
So fun. Do you know, every time I talk about you, my son's always like, is Barbara old? I'm like, no, she's not old. He always associates you with being an old woman.
and you know what? That's okay because that's what makes me different is people say my name, you either know me or you don't. And that's hard because you think of a little girl growing up, everyone was Sally and Sarah and they had such pretty girl names and then Barbara. But it's my grandmother. So I love it because my grandma that's such a honor. And it's kind
100%.
of it's kind of cool, but kind of bad. So when I was at school, people were like Barbara. It's not like my younger sister who's called Jessica. She had like 5 Jessicas in her class: Jessica P, Jessica T, Jessica S. Like, so I know, but I love and I welcome that your son's like, is she old? Because I used to go to business meetings in Auckland where I used to work, and I used to introduce myself at reception. Whoever used to walk out used to shake all the time. Used to go, "Oh, sorry, you're not what I expected."
No,
All
you're
the
not.
time, all the time. Or
It's
I'd have
cute
a name, I'd have all the time, and I'd have a name badge on,
you.
and the older people would go, "Oh, that's lovely that the old name's carrying forward." So I'd have like a half an hour conversation with an 80-year-old man or woman about how beautiful my name was. So yes,
Oh,
it's yeah. So I welcome that to your son. Yeah, is that an old lady? Probably. Yeah,
yeah.
I love that. Okay, so that's interesting. So when you said pulling cards.
Yep.
Can you explain that to anyone that's listening to this? We're talking about spirituality. How does that help you and what does it mean?
So everyone reads cards differently. So how I read cards is basically I I pull a card spread, and every card has a part in the story. So one will give me a brief description of the situation. One will give me insight into what's blocking you getting your ideal situation. They'll show me ideal situation. They'll give advice for your best life path moving forward, and it will actually have a little story ending. So it gives you an insight into the whole story. Now, the thing with reading cards is, I always say to people, when you get a deck of cards, throw the fucking book away. Don't read the book. Don't use it as a sign. So when you look at something, and I'm going to show you like with the pictures.
So
So all of
that's
your
tarot
cards.
cards, right? When you say, I'm just going to peel it back one more layer. When you say cards, we're talking about tarot
Yep.
cards.
Tarot cards, angel cards, oracle cards. To be honest, I could read your future from my coffee cup. I could literally read your future from my coffee cup. Like from I people can't see, but I have like a dinosaur cup. So what would happen is, right, I would look at the cards, the coffee cup, the packaging of a packet of chips. Okay. And if I'm looking for something specific, like I want to know something about Barbara, I want to know something about Barbara's business, I'll have a look at everything and you'll notice one thing is just going to go bam and stand out to me. And the feeling in your body is going to be like, yes, that's it. But then it's my job to interpret why the angels or why the guides are giving me that sign. And normally in a whole deck of cards, everything makes sense because it kind of gives an answer to the last unanswered picture that comes up. So the way that I read cards is I'll get little glimpses. So a card that I pull for you would mean something different to that exact card being pulled out in the exact spot for someone else. It's because what stands out on that card to me is going to be different today with you than what it is going to be tomorrow with Joe Blow. In the same section of the story. And it goes, that's why cards have pictures, that's why cards have numbers. Some of them you can find initials. So I can get names from cards, I can get dates from cards. And it's almost like the guides will give you, it's like, oh, I'm looking at this and I'm looking at, oh, you're going to have a fight with someone with orange hair. And then my guides will be like, no, that's wrong. So I'll go back in, I'll be like, what is this card trying to tell me? And then it will tell me something about, you know, a girl with green eyes or something like that. But that's the thing. It takes a lot of practice and it takes a lot of having so much fucking faith in yourself to actually say that out aloud without fear of judgment, without fear of being wrong. Because there are times where I've read cards and, you know, it happened a few weeks ago. I read a spread for a client and I went to my husband. I'm like, I can't fucking send this to this client. It was about losing someone. It was about, you know, debts being settled. And I was like, it's almost like she's lost someone or she's grieving someone. I said, but what if the timing of my cards are wrong? What if I'm telling her she's going to lose a family member and she hasn't? I said, I can't give that information to someone. And then I sat with myself and I was like, no, you know what, Nicole, you have practiced and you have listened and you have tuned your intuition so finally. Trust yourself, send the reading. And you know what? She emailed me back. I was on the fucking money. On the money. And it was so I can't tell you the relief when she wrote back. So it really comes down to trusting it. And you know what? Sometimes people think that intuition sounds like something that's really loud and, you know, oh, I'm actually going to physically hear someone talking in my ear. It's not. Your imagination and thoughts are exactly the same as intuition and psychic insight. So that's where people get confused. But the difference is the feeling in your body. So if you can see something, like let's just say you're having a premonition about something happened with your family and you can feel it in your chest and you feel really anxious about it, that's you being, I don't want to say dramatic, but it's you catastrophizing a situation rather than feeling into your intuition.
One thing too, when we talk about trusting ourselves, is you built this beautiful business, the Intuitive Alchemist, for trusting yourself. That's one thing. You've practiced this craft over and over again. And as you said, if someone's got cards, you chuck the book out, which I've never heard anyone say that before. That's interesting. But people get these crystals or they get cards and they expect to just do it. And it's a craft and it's something that you need to find your own ability. So I love that you shared that. And I love that now you're trusting in yourself. So thank you.
Yeah.
Because the more you trust yourself, you allow other people permission to do the same. So once that
100%.
you're yourself, Nicole, you're sharing your gifts, you back yourself, any woman or any person that comes in contact with you now will be like, oh, Nicole's just being herself, or Barbara's just being herself. Maybe that means I can be myself. They shared something really vulnerable on the podcast. Maybe I can tell a friend or a family member that I'm going through a really hard time. Maybe Barbara's sharing that she sobbed that she was single, and anyone that knows me, and that's what I mean. I'm screwing if you can't see me, I'm literally screwing up my face going, I sobbed last night because I want to meet my person. That is not me. So this is what I mean. You got to listen to this stuff. But us getting vulnerable means that you can too. You can find your people. So, all right. The other thing I want to ask you about, Nicole, is past life and soul connections. That's something that
Yeah.
people know more about.
Okay, so I actually do a lot of work with this with my Reiki clients. So when we do Reiki, people don't realize that, and some people might not believe in past lives and soul contracts or whatever, which is absolutely fine. However, this is something that I've learned not from listening to podcasts or seeing things on Instagram. So when I do my Reiki clients, I will literally summon and call their guides. So everyone has guides. You have your guardian angels, and then you also have guides. So your guides can be people literally from your family lineage. So, great grandfathers, whatever. And then you can also have guides that are from past lives. And then there are guides who represent different things. So certain guides will come through for what they deem as appropriate for what you need at the time. So let's just say you need to really amp up your feminine energy and you really need to, work on loving yourself. There is a particular woman who comes through, and people share the same guides as well. So I've seen this woman numerous times. She comes through and she has that beautiful, long, flowing hair. She has a dress on. She has a basket with, fruits and breads and things like that. And she's basically there so that women can learn to, and it's normally after people become mums, to love themselves and nurture themselves and really step into their feminine energy again. But it's really, really interesting because some of the times I obviously meet Reiki clients and I have never met them before, and we'll pull up guides from like Asia, and they'll be like, oh my God, that's why I feel so deeply connected to Asian culture in this lifetime. Some of them will be Viking warriors, and they'll be like, oh, I'm obsessed with weapons. Like, I'm obsessed with those really handmade axes and things and arrows and like weapons that have been used by these people in past lives. And sometimes it's almost like you carry soul fragments, but then you also carry karmic ties. So, back at the start of the podcast when you were saying, sometimes you meet people and you get a really good feeling or you get a really bad feeling. I can also associate this with meeting people, souls that you have also been tied to in past lives. So sometimes it's like you just know that person, they fucked me up 3 lifetimes ago. I'm going to hold on to that. And I don't like them in this lifetime. And generally speaking, even when you have a really deep connection to someone, so you have a soul mate, but then you also have soul contracts with people. So your soul contracts are people from past lives that you will reconnect with in this life to teach you a lesson or serve a purpose. And you know what? People are always like, why do I keep going back to that person? Because you haven't fulfilled the contract that you have with this person in this lifetime.
Mm.
Does that make sense? And they always feel so like, oh my gosh, they're the love of my life. I feel so deeply connected. Of course you feel deeply connected because you've been with this person in 600 fucking lifetimes.
Yeah, interesting you're talking about that very thing, because I'm sitting here going, I've never been in love. I've never experienced that feeling. And isn't it
Yep.
interesting from my card pool, here you go,
Very.
you're saying this to me again.
Yep. Yep.
Wow, that's okay. That's interesting because a lot of people get really hooked up on um goes both ways. Like obviously I'm very well versed. Part of why people see me is they've either been in they're either in a toxic relationship with themselves, with loved ones, with family, or with partners. And look, I pretty much will write a book about it, I'm sure, one day, because I'm that good at it. I'm that good at it and I've lived that life. But it's interesting because when you meet people and you like them and you don't, it can be so hidden that it can flip the other way, and you can feel so if you're not aware of how toxic relationships work, when you meet that magnet, that's why they're called magnetic energy, and it's not a good energy, but it feels like you have met your person, is it's because they manufacture they mirror you, and that's why it feels like it's like your soul connection and your soulmate. So I just want to highlight that for anyone that's like maybe thinking about that, or you meet someone. Sometimes it can be that soul connection, but sometimes what I've experienced is the other side of it. Oh my God, it's my soulmate, or this girlfriend
Yeah.
that I've met, I've known you forever, and it can turn out to be not a good thing. So I don't want to like chuck some shade in here, but I just want to keep it real, as to let people know that it all stems from you. If you have a healthy relationship with yourself, you'll have a healthy relationship with others, but in turn you will attract healthy people into your life. If you know what you're
100%.
about and you know what you're here to do, if you don't, you're going to be ruled by the world expectations of you, or that family conditioning or other people's rules. So that's where the overthinking happens. That's where the people pleasing happens. That's where I hear from a lot of women, especially they'll wake up at a certain age, or when they become mothers, or when their kids leave home. Who the hell am I? I don't even
Hmm.
know what I like anymore. I don't know who I am.
That's all part of you living this lifetime and growing as a person and learning lessons, not only from this lifetime but from past lifetimes. So people, and you would see it a lot, people who have the same cycles with relationships and they meet the same type of people really underestimate self-growth from a self-growth level, but also a spiritual level. Because when you talk from a lens of manifestation and bringing what's for you to you, if you think you're going to be the same person and not do the work and not recognize, like, hey, that type of personality is not for me, that type of personality brings out the worst in me. If you don't recognize that, heal it, move forward, guess what? Same thing's going to happen. Going to pull the same people in.
When you learn, I thought I had learned. No, someone else came knocking, and
Hmm.
yeah, someone else comes knocking, and then you go, oh, okay, no, I still haven't learned. So it's really,
Yes, and
yeah, it's so powerful though, isn't it?
100%. And like when you were asking about, what is it? What spirituality? This is how I try and explain. Like, it is a whole umbrella of things, because this heavily ties into spirituality as well. Because everyone talks about, what's meant for you won't miss you, and no, it won't. But if you're being a lying, cheating bastard for 20 years of your life and you won't change, and your soulmate won't tolerate that, guess what? They're not going to come, or you'll meet them and you'll fuck it up. And this is why you hear that people are high school sweethearts and then they dwindle off and then they reconnect 20 years later, because one of those people haven't done the work to make them right, to make that soul connection work. So this is why self-work and doing internal work and growing as a person is also very important for your life path, spirituality, because the universe will fucking test you. It will test you, and you know that it's fucking sending these. But you think that you're healed from those types of relations. Let me send you one more person just to make sure.
Yep. And I'll still be sent those people for the rest of my life. And I make a giggle now and I just go, yeah, no, I can see right through you. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but it just takes practice. And I think too, like, I love how you connect the two together. This stuff, um, I think out of all of this, and we boil it all down, anyone's listening to this, obviously, don't you want to understand yourself first? Don't you want to understand how you feel in your body? Don't you want to understand what you're thinking and why you're thinking, and that you can have anything and be anything and do anything you want? Like, as little girls, we dream and we like anything. The person that's whoever you idolize, you're a movie star, anyone, they're just another person. They're exactly the same as you. They're not special. They're not any different. You can, if that's what you want, go get it. Like, don't, stop blocking yourself.
That's right. That's exactly right. Oh, look, if that and that's the thing. If what's meant for you won't miss you, that's absolutely fine. It's not going to miss you, but people don't realize too that they are so controlled, and that's from a spiritual lens and a lens from talking about spirits. Is that's why the humans are so centralized to the spirit world is because we are the only ones who have our own self will, our own free will. So all of the entities and all of the spirits, they're all guided by rules. They have very strict rules that they have to follow. This is why, when you put salt across your door, they're not allowed to come in. We are the only thing in existence that has our own free will.
That's not good, because when I get to that world, I'm not going to be good because I don't follow rules. So I'm going to have to
Well,
be spirit. They're going to have to find a new job for me because I don't follow rules. So that's going to be interesting.
you'll be that ghost haunting people and they'll be like, excuse me, can you leave? And you're like, why? I'm
Yeah,
fucking value. I can make you a coffee. I can turn the jug on.
I could just see it. Put salt across the door. Who gives a fuck? What does that do? I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's so interesting. Is there anything else that you want to share before we wrap up? Anything that you've got there written down that you want to? So I know it's such a big, we'll have to have you back. It's such a big topic to talk about. Like it's that big
Oh,
umbrella, isn't it? It's
it's
like,
massive. It's
it's like,
so
how long is
massive.
a piece of string? It's like, what is spirituality? It's kind of like, well,
Oh, 100%. But I think the best advice for me moving forward is with everyone. So even, my husband's not very, I would say spiritual, and he has learnt to be, and he has learnt what his own intuition sounds like and is now very happily following that. However, the best advice I can give to people is, really let go of the fear and that external sound when it comes to listening to yourself, and you would be actually astounded at how fucking strong and how accurate your own intuitive voice is. So I'm really big on suggesting to my clients, like, there are a few intuitive I would say practices that you can do. One is hiding some things under a cup, moving them around and thinking which, like, let's just say we put different colored stones under cups, trying to pick which cup has the green stone, holding pieces of paper with images behind them and see if you get the color, if you get the number, if you get the image, like work on these and repeat them and repeat them and repeat them so that it's almost like if I heard your voice in a room of 1,000, 1,000,000 people, because I've heard your voice so many times, I would pick your voice in a heartbeat.
yeah, I get
This is what you need to learn what your intuitive voice sounds like, so that in a room of noise, external influences, this is why I tell people to throw a book away when they have angel cards or oracle cards, is because you don't want external things influencing, because your own intuition is far more accurate and far more pure.
I love that, because when you said that we need to connect with ourselves, most of the time I talk a lot about that first 7 to 10 years of our life when we're pre-programmed with what our school teachers told us, what society has told us, what your parents have told us. There's no right or wrong, but most of the time we're governed by rules and thoughts and opinions and values that aren't ours.
Yep. And that's what scares most people's natural intuition away, because kids don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
They'll tell you, like, we're going to get in this car and we're going to die. And I'm like, whoa, that's a bit, do you know what I mean? Because they're not worried. They
Yeah.
just say it how it is. They just say where their feelings come from. But society teaches you to, like, fear it and push it down. And that's not what it sounds like. That's not intuition. That's you being paranoid, or that's you being, overly worried or catastrophizing a situation. No, it's not.
And when
Sometimes it is.
when you're a kid, what do you know? And kids are told, shh, shh, be quiet,
Mhm.
go in the corner, go play, get away from the adults, shh, be quiet, be seen but not heard.
Yeah. And I don't want to be one of those woo-woo people, but imagine where the world would be if more people listened to their intuition and more people really tapped into feeling their body and knowing when they're sick and knowing what they need to heal themselves. The world would be a really fucking different place, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't have a job.
No. Oh, you still would have a job, because people still don't learn lessons.
Yeah, yeah. But I think also listen to your children. I think that is
Mm.
such a huge thing, because not only is the child so tapped into that world, they're a byproduct of you, they're half of you, and they're actually your mirror. So whenever your
Mm.
kid triggers you or says something, they're the best. Yeah, they're the best little person that you can learn from too.
100%. And also too, going back to how you felt as a child. Like if you don't have a child to mirror from and replicate, like everyone's been a child.
We still are.
Everyone's been a child.
We still are.
That's
We're
right.
just in grown-up bodies.
I'm immature. My husband will vouch for it.
Oh my, I love it. Coming from someone, like I said in the beginning, that um I don't know how I got here, but I did. That spirituality is, oh, I know when my dog passed away. So sorry, I do know when it started for me. And I saw her, and I've talked about it many times on many podcasts, as I saw her spirit leaving her body. And I went, oh, wow, that is something that my eyes will never unsee, that white smoke coming out of her body. And I always used to think that she was my daughter. I always thought that um, even though I wasn't spiritual or anything back then, when I had my little pug with me, I looked at her and thought, I had memories of, I can't wait to have a little girl and the three of us can hang out. And then as I got older, I thought, oh, I don't think that's happening. And then as she got older, I thought maybe she'll pass and she'll be my human daughter, which I know would probably sound a bit weird. And then that
No.
didn't happen. And then I was like, oh, shit. Okay. Well, that was, that was dumb. And then when I saw what I saw was like, okay, that was the beginning of what she was teaching me. And she's always with me. Like now, if I'm just talking about a pug, if I go outside today, I'll see one. Like that's the
Yeah.
cool thing about, don't limit it to people. Like if you're an animal lover, like I'm not a big animal lover, but my dogs are my family and they're very spiritual, very special beings, every single one of them. So use your animals if you're like me, and people annoy you sometimes. Use your pets or it doesn't have to be always human based.
Absolutely.
So
And that's a subject for another day too. When you said you feel like your dog was your daughter in spirit, that's a whole other topic for another day about, babies and spirits that wait for you and who your children
yeah.
are. And yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a topic. We've got many things that we can unpack. So let's definitely, I feel like we probably should have a weekly check-in, weekly spiritual podcast, weekly check-in. So if
It'll be
anyone's,
wild.
yeah, if anyone's listening to this, how can they get in contact with you to learn more about this stuff? Because I think if you're interested in spirituality, you want to get into this more. Nicole you can see her online or in person, and I'll vouch for her. You will get, you know what I mean? She will, I'm never lost for words. What do I want to say? She's not really like anyone else, and she's someone that you'll learn and you'll actually feel good when you walk away from her. Actually, because I have had some spiritual happenings before where I had a reading gifted to me and it was very dark and it basically could have ruined me because I had a voice inside my head that said, drive in front of this truck. Do you remember me telling you about that reading?
I will never forget that reading. I actually
I
can't
think
believe
I rang
that.
you. I think I actually messaged you crying. I think I rang you
Yeah.
crying or something. So that's what I'm saying is this stuff is incredible and it changes your life and it's so supportive and it's so loving. But there are some people that when you actually we all have power and we all have energy, and I have a lot of energy and I would give it out to people. And I think some people they can drain me and I've still got plenty. And this one particular woman drained me. And I'll never forget that. So that's what I mean. I'm very careful with who I let, like spiritually, who touch me now, who, when you go for a facial or anything, like literally make sure that you go to people, because energy is obviously in a room. It can be online. It can be you thinking about someone, and it can be think about people that do your nails or your hair or massage or anything like that. Like just take note of who's touching you or who's in your space, because I have been caught many times, and I reckon a lot of my connections were only because people wanted to. I used to find it funny because people were jealous of me, and I used to laugh because I used to be like, you've got the husband, you've got the house, you've got the successful business, you've got the children. Like I used to find it quite comical. What are you jealous about me for? And then I was like, oh, it's because of my energy and who I am. So then when I understood that, I was like, okay, but that's the thing, is that can bring a lot of darkness because people will pull that from you. So that's what I'm saying, is be very careful that who you go to for a reading or card spread or Reiki or like anything that's in Nicole's world, like just be careful that most of the time it's through referral or you talk to them a little bit and just check in with yourself first. What do I want to get from this person? Not what I want to take from that person, because that's an energy exchange. So you have to feel good about it. But that was very dangerous. I'm not far along as what I am now, because I won't even call that into my life. But when I saw that lady, and that's right, I walked across the road and I've got a car alarm with an immobilizer, but it's never gone off before. And there were builders across the road. And I tried to get into my car and it wouldn't allow me, and the alarm went off. And it's never happened ever again. And they were all laughing at me, looking at me, "You're right." And I was like, yep. And I just felt like a muppet because I couldn't open my car doors. Lights were flashing. I was going honk, honk, like, and I was like, my car, like, that's when it started. Got into my car, drove off, then was almost home, and then this dark, literally a dark passing thought, go on, just drive in front of that truck. And I went, what the fuck? And then I got on the phone
That's
to Nicole and
terrible.
was like, I've just had this happen. And she was like, whoa. So I want to normalize, the other side to it. That's all I want to say about that. But just be careful and reach out to me anytime, reach out to Nicole anytime. We will always reply to your DMs and just, yeah, reach out to us if you have any questions.
Yeah, and one thing about like card readings and stuff like that, a good card reader won't tell you shit like that. They won't tell you shit like that at all. They won't tell you about deaths. They won't tell you about, oh my God, you'll never find a soulmate. They just won't tell you.
Oh, that's
Whether
what
it
old mate, that's
comes,
what old mate told me, right? She said,
yeah.
actually, she laughed at me and said, you're never going to find anyone. You're going to be alone forever, which I was like, oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah.
well. And then she said, any guys that you do meet are all going to have addictions and stuff. And I was like, no, that's what I've just been through. Like, it was so confusing because I was like, no, because I won't put up with that again. And she was like, oh, well,
Mhm.
sorry, you're just going to have to suck it up. You're going to be alone forever. And it was so
That's
dark.
terrible.
It was so dark and it was so depressing. And the whole time she just kept commenting, gosh, you're so beautiful. Just, you're so beautiful. Maybe that was her magic spell to get my energy. Every time she said I was beautiful, she would like stir her cauldron and get some more magic potion from me. That's kind of what I imagine her doing, like, ha ha ha, you're so
Yeah.
pretty.
See, the thing is too, what people, I always warn people, and this is, so coming back to choosing a card reader, choosing a Reiki practitioner, first and foremost, I really need to reiterate to people to understand what your provider is providing. Because I've had some people come to me for Reiki and they think it's a psychic reading. And I was like, no, energy healing and psychic reading are completely two different things. I've had people come to me or Reiki who think that I do mediumship. And I was like, you might have guides and family come through, but it is not a mediumship reading. So please, when choosing a provider, make sure you understand what your provider is providing. But also too, from a different lens, when she told you that, you obviously had this moment where you were like, fuck, I might as well just end it. But in the future, will you be a little bit more hesitant choosing a partner, looking for the fact that are they an addict? Are they this? Like maybe she's opened up a world by telling you that to actually push you into the arms of someone. You never know. And that's the funny thing about psychics. Like you
Mm.
don't know why spirit are passing messages on.
I think it was all her darkness coming on to me, really. Honestly, I don't think that was anything to do with me. I think it was all her dark shit. But
Some people are bastards. Some people are really big scam artists with this.
yes, yeah.
Really big scam artists. So yeah, be
Which
careful.
is
But
hard because I know I have been really vulnerable at times in my
yeah,
life, and sometimes I've just needed someone to tell me I'm going to be okay, and that spiritual side has really helped when you go to someone trusting. It really just gives you that. Again, I see a lot of people, same with you, people want certainty.
they see, a lot of people who go to card readers are very desperate to know something. They're very desperate for information about relationships or, work.
Having a baby, not having a baby, will this marriage last forever? Is he or she cheating on me? Is this the job? Is this the country?
Yeah.
You know what? That's where we need to tap into ourselves, because I know this sounds so, but you, I'm taking the piss out of myself when I say this out loud, because you already have all the answers within, and I know it sounds like, oh, but it's actually really true. It's actually really true. I know it sounds wanky, but and I'm taking the total piss out of myself, but I want you to hear the seriousness is like, do life for you. I did a post the other day, something about like when you do the things that you want, when you do the things that you want to do, you create such an awesome life. And I promise you, it is so cool. It's hard, but most of the time it is 99% cool because you're living things and doing things your way.
And a funny thing about most card readings is when I do most card pulls, I'm not going to tell them, most of the time, I'm not going to tell them anything extravagant. I will tell them things that they probably already know. I'll just give them a little bit of a further insight, a few key, maybe times, initials, months, or whatever. But normally deep down, the answers that I'm giving them, generally people aren't extremely shocked by.
Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So interesting. So where can people find you, Nicole, if they want to they've heard you on this podcast, want to know more about what you do? What's the best way for someone to get in contact with you?
Okay, so for in-person card readings, I do them in person at the Palm Studio. So you can find me on the.palm.studio on Instagram. Or alternatively, if you're not from Wollongong, or if you're even international and you would like a card reading, you can find me at The Alchemist, the Intuitive Alchemist on Instagram. However, I will also this year be hosting some workshops, really delving into working on intuitive skills, just really helping women bond with other women as well, because I think women are so powerful, but that's a story for another day as well. I'm going to be holding workshops to help people with their gifts. We'll be eventually teaching Reiki as well. So if you do want to get into any type of workshop, you can find that on the Intuitive Alchemist website. The dates will be launched on the website.
Yay, there's so much, so many things. I want to thank you for, stepping outside your comfort zone. I know sometimes recording a podcast can be a little bit, you forget that it's just you and me talking. I forget that actually other people listen. And when I get their feedback or they message me and go, oh, I've had all the kids in the car and I really, people I used to go to school with send me messages, oh, I've got all the kids in the car and we listen to your podcast. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so mortified because I drop the F word every 2 seconds. And then I think, but all my friends' kids are basically, teenagers now or quite old, but I still think, oh, how, like, you're listening to me, like, seriously, don't you have anything better to do than listen to me? But it's nice, but I still find it quite, I forget that it's just not just you and me, Nicole, but yeah, thank you for coming on and sharing your gifts. And this is something I feel the world is going to change tomorrow. I already know that without a doubt with Mr. Trump coming in, there's going to be big, big changes, and people are going to now more than ever need to not listen to what everyone else is doing. We need to go within and listen to ourselves. So this is such a timely conversation for you and I to have.
Oh, absolutely. And just PSA, I love Trump. I think he'll do great things. They say don't talk religion and politics, but just I'm a fan.
Yeah, I just think he just is someone that is just, I want to see how far I can take the piss a little bit and just see how far I can go. And he's going far. He is just milking it.
He doesn't give a shit.
No.
He doesn't give a shit. He's living his best authentic life. Take a note from Trump's book. He's living his best life. He doesn't give a shit.
And shit don't stick to him. Boy, he can do anything. And he's just like, hey.
That's exactly right. He's not coming out alive. He doesn't care. He's going out with glory.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you so much for such a great chat today. And
thanks for having me.
yeah, we're not going to leave it for so long. So episode 56 is when you first came on. This is wrapping up 132. So when I see you again, we won't leave it for so long.
No, definitely not.
And I'm excited to see what my card pool is. So I'm going to go and have a chat with Nicole now. So yeah, thanks guys for tuning in, and I'll be back next week with another episode. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. I hope this conversation has added value to your self-care journey and inspired positive changes in your life. If you enjoyed this episode, consider sharing it with a friend who might benefit from this episode. Don't forget to subscribe on Spotify or on your favourite podcast platform to stay up to date on future episodes. Your support means the world to me. I genuinely love hearing from you, so please take a moment to leave a review. Let me know which part of today's episode resonated with you the most. Your feedback guides the direction of this podcast, and I really appreciate each and every single one of you for being a part of this community. To fall in love with yourself is the first secret to happiness. To find out a bit more about the Studio Chat podcast, head over to my Instagram page, Studio Chat Podcast, or if you want to find out a bit more about my counselling private practice, head over to Instagram on self_care_studio. I'm really looking forward to seeing you on the next episode. Until next time, take care of yourselves and keep embracing the journey of self-discovery.